Hey guys, so I know it's been like a really long time since I did one of these. Sorry about that. I never intended to give up on it, though I don't like giving up on things if I can help it. But so let me just we're about to start the Fairies sidequest, which is when you give the vegetables to this guy, and he tells you that they haven't been getting a response from the fairies and that something's wrong. But anyway. So where have I been? Well, in September, October, actually it was October, I was a judge for the Indie Game Maker Contest. It's my second time as a judge, and I love it. I just think it's such a privilege. I played probably, 150 games by the time I was done, something like that people made, and it was really cool. Like, even the ones that don't win, there's a lot of great stuff that doesn't win. It's just so interesting. People are so creative. And it's really a privilege. And I hope I can do it again. They're talking about doing one for 2018, maybe at a different time of the year. So it could be sooner than we think. But that's a little outside my purview, so I don't know. Yeah, that was great. And then by the time that was done, it was getting close to Thanksgiving and Christmas, and there was just a lot going on. So I didn't have time for any of this. And Christmas is ridiculous, especially when you have kids. I mean, they're out of school, and families all over the place, and so I really. And then last month, I don't know if I have an excuse for last month. I think I was just a little hungover. Working on a few other projects. I finished my book. I've mentioned it like a bunch of times. I did finish the first draft. I sent it out to a few of my friends to look over. Only one of them has gotten back to me, though. I think, people are busy and it's not a top priority. I understand that. So, eventually I assume I'll get some feedback from them and go from there. But back to the game. We're here in this little hotel room where the family's been living. And the funny thing about this is not particularly far-fetched. A lot of people do this now, at least in America. I just, a few months ago, I saw a movie. It was actually my favorite movie of last year, The Florida Project. And it's about this, sort of tacky hotel. It's all painted purple down in Florida, right down the road from Disney World. And it used to be a big deal, for tourists when Disney World opened. But eventually Disney World built a bunch of their own hotels inside the park, so people go there. I mean, when I went, when I was a kid, we went there. So, what happened to the other hotels that were down the road? Well, they're kind of like housing projects. People paying week by week to read in a room. I mean, not to read. I'm reading dialogue. That's why I said that. To stay in a room. So it's interesting. Just a nice look at that. And from what I understand, it was most of the people who act in it are people from the area. So it was pretty authentic. Anyway, if it's playing near you, you should see it. It's a good movie, and it's probably going to be on video soon enough. But now we're on our way to the fairy capital, which is in this general area near Artagel. First, I'm looking for some treasure, because I usually on these scenery kind of transition maps, I like to put at least one treasure chest to reward people who explore. Yep, see, here we go. So that's if you're ever playing some of my stuff, or if I ever finish another game, God knows if I will, keep that in mind. Yeah, so Stoics giving a little geography lesson, but we're going south. And it's not the most impressive building, but the majority of it is underground. So, which kind of helped me out, actually, because, when you're making buildings in RPG Maker, you always have to, keep track of the size of the inside relative to the size of the building outside. It's funny, a lot of the games I played during the contest did not take this into account, and it's very distracting. Like, you go into this little house, and then the inside is like the size of a fucking football field. So it's so big. So that was, I took a few points off of some games for that because that's pretty ridiculous. But in this case, really, I only had to worry about the first floor, or the top floor, I guess. So I could pretty much design the other floors however I wanted, because they're all underground. So right now we're going to meet with our fairy representative. Now this whole thing is kind of like, well, there's a couple things going on here. I mean, first, it's just, fun. It's just a fun side quest, a lot of humor. But also, there were kind of like two things I was thinking of when I did this. The first was just kind of like a parody of the sort of robotic town meetings that I would go to when I was a journalist. You go to these zoning board meetings, and there's so much like boilerplate and everything, and it sounds so like stilted sometimes. So there's a couple scenes where you're in the fairy chambers, and somebody has to make a motion, and somebody has to second the motion, and they all vote on it. And some people have said, like, man, couldn't that have been paced a little better? And I was like, well, yeah, of course it could be, but then it wouldn't really be like a local government, So that was one thing I wanted to do, and that was kind of fun. Another thing, it's a little bit inspired by things that happens, kind of some unique American things that happen in our government. Like, there's a saying that gets repeated every so often, which is people run for office saying that the government doesn't work, and then they get elected and prove it. So, that's a little bit what's going on here. But in this case, there's somebody sabotaging the fairy government, basically keeping it from working. And once we find out more, I mean, I don't know. Some people might be seeing the game the first time through these videos, so I don't want to like spoil it. But so I'll talk a little bit more about that later once we get a better idea of what's going on. But I like this conversation, just that it kind of reveals the weakness of the fairies. They're just so trusting. So they they just, like Stoic said a little bit ago, the idea that like there'd be a traitor in their midst is just like almost mind blowing for them, because they're just so good, they're so good that they're a little stupid, but at the same time, they're so sweet. And I really have to give a lot of credit to, I might have mentioned this before, I can't remember, because it's been a few months, but I really have to give a lot of credit to Wumpy, which is, of course, an alias for somebody I knew in the RPG Maker scene years ago when I was working on this game. And she was a great fan. She did all this fan art. She was so into it. And she was very interested in the fairies. Just their little anecdotes that they share. And so she would sort of brainstorm with me, like, how does this fairy stuff work? And it got me thinking a lot. And I was like, you know what? I mean, I've thought, we've had so many conversations about this, I really should just put something in the game. And your answer sucks. But wouldn't that be great if you could tell, like, your politician that? He's like, you go to hell. Which is a little tip-off because, like Stoic says, again, fairies don't swear. So they're going to come up with a little plan now. And where was I going with that? Fairies don't swear. Oh, actually, I was saying that, you might want to tell off your congressional representative. But the irony of it is, at least in my case, I think it's for a lot of people, is that, like, I like my congressman. I think he's I think he's got the right priorities and stuff, and I like my senators too. I'm from Connecticut, if I haven't said, and so people will sometimes, there'll be some problem, and you'll see people on social media being like, "Call your senators, call your congressman." But it's like, I could call them, but they're chances are they're already on my side. So what do you do? Although it happened a few times where I've called senators from other states. Generally, they like to talk to their own people, but I just sort of look at a map of this state and like bullshit. And they'll be like, "What town are you from?" And I'll be like, East Bumfuck, Wyoming." And then usually that works. You can leave a message. I don't know how much they listen to, but man, we have fairies though. I think things might go a little better. All right, so now we're getting a list of ingredients along with some money to go buy. It's a weird group of ingredients, but that's kind of what makes it fun. So we head back to our Tagil, and a lot of times when I'm doing playthroughs, I tend to just buy the shit before I go in there. That way you just have it. But this time I didn't, because I think it's probably better for the from a viewing perspective to do it the way that it's intended. Right, here we are, and it's all in the bazaar, or most of it is. So I kind of want to do some more game stuff, right? Because I'm done with my book for the time being, anyway. And of course, I got all sorts of games to play if I'm bored. I got a Steam gift card for Christmas, $50. You know how much that gets you on Steam during the winter sale? Holy fuck, it's like a fortune. So that was an awesome gift, and I got tons of games. God, I could play for the rest of the year on that. I also got a few, bigger games for the Xbox. But but that's not really creative, and I tend to get unhappy if I'm not doing something creative for too long. So, but what was cool about the Steam sale was that there's all this like DLC that they put out now for RPG Maker, and I still use Ace. I haven't used MV, although I did get more familiar with it during the contest because, of course, we had a ton of games made on MV. But I don't know. I think I still prefer Ace. So, but they had all this DLC, and it was so like huge discounts, like 90% off and shit. So you're getting all this good like tile sets and battlers and stuff for like $1. So anyway, if anybody out there does RPG Maker, I highly recommend you look at the DLC next time there's a big sale, because you can really like rack yourself up a nice collection of assets, and they come with like you're also purchasing the right to use them in a commercial game if you're going to go that way. So that's out of the way as well. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I do a commercial game again. Labyrinth and Dreams was nice. I'm glad that it's out there, but it was also a little disillusioning because we worked so hard and so little, and not much happened after. I mean, and I'm not talking about money, although that would have been nice. It was more just I really was hoping people would like engage with the themes and the story the way that people used to engage in this game back during the height of its popularity. And I didn't see much of that. Even a lot of the reviews we get on Steam, which are mostly good, it was all just like, this game is fun puzzles, cool story. You should get it if it's on sale. It was nothing like deep. And I don't know, maybe that sounds a little like, I don't know, like narcissistic or something, but you just kind of want to hear people react to your work, like in a substantial way. I mean, you put so much work into all this stuff, and you kind of this fairy speaking gibberish is all like real acronyms and jargon from Connecticut politics, so it's kind of funny. And this room here, where the painted windows to make it a little less dreary, there was actually a secret ending at the end of this arc where the fairies go over a oh, sorry, my dog's barking. Shut up. Going over a dossier for one of the villains, and I won't say who because that's a bit of a spoiler too. And it's mostly like a backstory thing, get you caught up with some backstory. But I don't think it's in this version. I think a lot of the side stuff that we made was taken out of the complete versions, which is a shame. Be nice if we had some kind of like special features where you could watch that shit. Actually, we might. I don't know. Maybe there is at the end of the game. I can't remember. But it'll be a while before we get there, so talk about that at a later time. So we made our potions that will dispel a transformation spell. So what they do is they put it in the chair person's food, and then you find out who it really is. And it's this guy, Yal the Hammer. Now I can talk a little bit more about what this little story arc is about. So he's like a very stereotypical RPG bad guy. Like he's, you get to the end of the game and you fight like a demon, and that's him. Like Fairy says, he's hidden crystals, he's stole princesses, he's summoned meteors to destroy the world. He's done it all. So, in a game like this, what would be the biggest problem for this guy? Well, it'd be fairies, who are always healing his enemies, letting them save and come back if they get killed. And so he has infiltrated the fairy government and basically crippled it so that it doesn't function anymore. And it's silly, but at the same time, that's kind of what happens here. Like, you get these sort of business interests that throw all this money at the government and pay for congressmen to get reelected. And then, so that they can kind of make rules that benefit them. I mean, so basically infiltrating the government to keep it from protecting the people is not a far-fetched idea at all. In fact, it happens all the time. And it's a problem, because, money is everything in this country. And we, a guy like me, or, I'm probably what you'd call lower middle class, I guess. We get by. We're not rich or anything, but we do okay. But people, like me and people, less than me, we can't compete with, millions of dollars that are going into Congress to keep things from happening. Like, a good example is the NRA, the National Rifle Association. Like, we have a fucking mass shooting like once a week in this country. Like, it doesn't even make the top of the front page anymore because, Trump's, insulted some country or whatever, and that goes on the front page instead. But it's like, it's always going on. We have so many people getting shot and killed in this country. Like, and then, whether it's gang violence, mass shooting, cops being trigger happy, whatever. And you cannot even get the weakest, most, like, piecemeal little gun control thing through Congress. You just can't. Like, after Newtown, which is a shooting that happened here in Connecticut, so this is quite personal, where, like, something like 20 kindergartners got shot. I mean, that's so fucked up. My kids are going to be in kindergarten next year, and And so there was talk about just background checks. That was the only thing. You know, people call that like, people act like it's such repressive gun control, but we weren't at that stage yet. You know, all we were talking about was like, maybe you shouldn't just let any fucking nutbar buy a gun. You know, and some people say, oh, well, that wouldn't have prevented Newtown. Well, maybe not. But that's a dumb thing to say because nothing can prevent it because it already happened. So we're talking about stuff in the future. And they did polls, and it was something ridiculously one-sided. Like 95% of people in this country were for the background checks. I mean, God, you can't. It's hard to get those numbers on fucking anything these days. But you know, Congress, they can't even bring it to vote. You know, because the NRA throws so much fucking money at Congress people, and like, it's so imbalanced and screwy. So I'm sorry, I'm getting really like ranty and frustrated, but this is an issue that upsets me. But the point being, the fairy government being compromised to the point where it like is leaving, you know, the fairies out in the field unable to do their duty is, you know, to me that's a big, it's relevant. It's a relevant idea. So, geez, this bird's got a lot of hit points, huh? Oh, there we go. There he goes. Let me just kill the egg. And so it was fun to use some of the, you know, the sort of stock RTP monsters, who probably wouldn't have shown up in the game like normally. But you know, you could use them in a scenario like this. They hurt real bad, but the revolution will not fail. So Yalad the Hammer. By the way, his name, Yalad. If you spell it backwards, you get delay. And that was named after a guy named Tom DeLay, who was not the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader for a while around this time. And he eventually went to, you know, got busted for money laundering and shit like that. And his nickname in Congress was the Hammer. So, very few people have gotten that joke. There's only one person I can think of, you know, a friend of mine who's very politically aware, who got that joke. And it is a little obscure, I know, especially now, because, you know, Tom DeLay's been out of Congress for a long time. But he's Yalad's from a place they call Monster Island, and this is a spider that only talks in Shakespeare. Why? Because it's fun. And it's a place called Monster Island, which, if you remember, any of you watched the Clean Slate Let's Play, that's where that's the place you could go towards the end of the game to like grind like really tough monsters. So Yalad brought some of the monsters with him. So this spider is actually not made by Enker. It was made by another artist who goes by Elsine. And actually the two spiders, the little spiders, were made by Lunaria, who's you know, one of my RPG Maker friends going back a long time. She's a very dear friend, and she did this for us, and now she works for Dejka, you know, helping out with the Steam store and managing like the art resources. She does it all. But the gag here is that the big spider's attacks all have like Shakespeare names, like there's a pound of flesh, which is from the Merchant of Venice, and then he hits you with a pound of flesh, presumably. But the two other spiders are kind of like dumbasses, so all they say, they don't even have names for the attack, is just like, I hit you, I make you weak. So that was a gag. And it was kind of fun coming up with like names that would, you know, work for Shakespeare quotes. Like one of my favorites is A Plague on Both Your Houses. Oh, he just did it. Wow, that was nice timing, huh? And that's from Romeo and Juliet, when Mercutio gets killed. Sorry for spoilers for a 600-year-old play, but he gets killed, and because there's the warring houses in Romeo and Juliet. That's the whole conflict. And so when he's getting dragged off, he says, "A plague on both your houses." And so, plague on both your houses here is a poison attack. So you're getting hit with a plague, and so that kind of stuff was fun to mess around with. And I didn't realize we just froze the spider. Oh, there he goes. Yeah, this guy will be dead soon too. And then I think we should probably wrap it up. It's kind of a long fight, so maybe we can do that next time. Ooh, we leveled up. Indeed, perhaps someday we shall sit around the fire and tell sad stories of the death of spiders. That's from Richard II. And of course, parting is such sweet sorrow is from Romeo and Juliet. Again. So this is a little thing I came up with, just sort of on the spot, where the fairy goes through the vent, and you have to like dodge some rats. Very basic. It can be a little janky, but what you do is you fly around the vents, and the rats can get in your way, so you have to get around them, or you can use her wand, which will scare some of them off. And they'll go the other direction. But you gotta be careful because she only has a few charges. Because if you could spam it, what do you do here? It's a little challenging. Alright, but we should be good here. I think it gets a little easier. Yeah, so all I gotta do is oh shit. No! Okay, good, you moved. Alright. And so we're and she comes out and pulls the switch. That fairy's really going the extra mile. Alright, but I'd say we're done for now, so we'll fight Yala next time. And I'll hopefully do one of these quicker. Alright, peace.